Hello, my name is Jeff Jordan, and I want to welcome you to this webinar on the 2018 postal rate changes. This webinar is one in a series of webinars presented in conjunction with the National Postal Forum. The next Postal Forum is scheduled for May 6th through the 9th, 2018 at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center in San Antonio, Texas. To receive an extra 10% off your 2018 NPF registration, be sure to check the box labeled "I have a different discount code" and enter the code mark 2018 into the discount code box and then click apply. For vendors on the call, don't miss out on the premier marketing event for mailing professionals and the USPS business customers. Exhibit where you reach your target customers more effectively and efficiently. Booths are assigned on a first come and first served basis, so act quickly. Go to NPF website for the latest information, and that's at www.npf.org. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the dialog box that appears in the GoToWebinar controls. In addition to covering the prepared remarks, we'll answer as many of those questions as time allows. So let's get started. Mark, what will we cover in today's webinar?
Jeff, thank you. And thank you to everybody who's joined us today. I want to let everyone know that both the PowerPoint and the recording of this webinar will be available shortly after we complete today's session. This rate case was announced on October 6, 2017, and is set to go into effect on January 21st, 2018. The new rates represent about a 1.9% increase over the current prices for the mailing or market dominant products, and a 3.9% increase for shipping or competitive products. We'll cover the categories in further detail in just a little bit. Interestingly, this price increase came in the absence of both a Board of Governors and the anticipated Postal Regulatory Commission review of the rate-making process, being that wasn't released until December 1st. With foresight, in November of 2016, while James Bilbray, the last presidentially appointed governor, was still serving, the board passed a resolution. In most years, the Postal Service may increase prices at the rate of inflation as determined by the Consumer Price Index, which was about 1.98% for the last 12 months. Under the resolution that they passed last November, the Postal Service could raise rates in 2018 under certain conditions, including using 95% of the newly accrued and previously unused CPI authority. This rate increase includes increases and even in some small categories, some decreases, depending upon the class and level of sortation. After we cover those, we'll walk through the implementation checklist for actions managers should take before and after the implementation date of January 21st, 2018.
January 21st, that's a Sunday, isn't it?
Yes, Jeff, it is. And for the last several years, I think it's now 5 years, the Postal Service has implemented the rate changes on a Sunday. And this is good news for mailers and the Postal Service. While mail may only be delivered 6 days a week, many operations in the print and mail industry operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Even shops that only deposit mail Monday through Friday often begin processing work on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening. When you and I began in the industry decades ago, rate changes meant changing the charts on fan scales, setting the defaults on meters, or installing new chips. Today, software drives our industry, from creating mailing statements, mail.dat files, and eDocs, to running the machines that handle, produce, and meter the mail. Most of the software updates will automatically take place on Sunday the 21st. That means managers can take advantage of an extra day to run additional tests on their equipment and their production software.
The rates for shipping services and other competitive products are calculated separately from the market dominant prices and even require separate filing. However, the changes will also go into effect on January 1st. Would you walk us through those changes?
Certainly, Jeff. Let's start with Priority Mail Express. All priority mail products are zone-based, so the dollar amount you see here deal with Zone 1. You need to know your mail and know where you're shipping for your exact costs. The increase is slight on the retail side, ranging from 3.9 to 4%. As you can see, each category saw a 95-cent price increase. There are additional fees that are basically staying the same as 2017, with $12.50 for Sunday delivery, $5 before 10:30 a.m. delivery. Now remember, that's Sunday delivery. It's important to note that the Postal Service is the only major carrier that delivers on Saturday at no extra cost. There's a slightly lower increase, about 3.8% for commercial rates. The same rate fees apply, including an additional 20 cents if the packages are non-IMPB compliant.
Now, the slide doesn't just state commercial, but also commercial base and commercial plus. Can you explain the difference?
Certainly. The commercial base prices are available for click and ship customers mailing regional rate boxes, registered end users of USPS approved PC postage products when using a qualifying shipping label managed by the PC postage system, customers using a permit imprint, priority mail open and distribute customers who are using permit imprint with the qualifying address label, permit holders using merchandise return services for mail pieces returned at priority mail prices. Customers using USPS approved information-based indicia, those are the IBI postage meters that print the IBI with the appropriate price marking, but then also electronically transmit the transactional data to the Postal Service. Commercial plus prices are available to priority mail customers who qualify for commercial base prices and whose cumulative account volume exceeds a combined total of 5,000 letter size and flat pieces, and that includes the flat rate envelopes, but not the padded flat rate envelopes, or 50,000 total priority pieces in the previous calendar year, and have a customer commitment agreement with the Postal Service. The postage savings in these categories are significant, especially when we get into the regular priority mail.
And we really noticed that in the standard priority mail category.
That's right, and we have 3 separate slides for priority mail. Unlike Priority Mail Express, the retail rates here saw a lower percentage price increase with an across-the-board 5-cent increase for each product. I want to point out that the APO, FPO, and DPO flat rate boxes. So APO stands for Army Post Office, FPO is Federal Fleet Post Office, and DPO is the Diplomatic Post Office. These are the addresses used if you're shipping to a service member or someone in the State Department who's on board a ship, or it is out of port, or is in the Air Force, Army, or Marines and is stationed overseas. Based on the real requirements and the requests from families and friends to help support our service members overseas, the Postal Service provides this service at $1.50 cheaper than the standard flat rate box. And Jeff, you and I both have friends who have family members over, so this is a good thing from the Postal Service.
It makes a difference.
It does make a difference. So on the commercial base, the pricing increase has a higher percentage increase with an average of 6.2%. However, the biggest sticker shock is for commercial mailers who use priority mail for smaller envelopes, with a 10.1% for the letter flat rate envelope and 9.6% for the legal size flat rate envelope. They're still lower than a lot of their competitors, but it is an increase. Despite these increases, the discounts from retail rates is substantial, up to $1.35 for the large flat rate boxes. And as I said earlier, businesses who use priority mail need to move to commercial base or commercial plus. Speaking of commercial plus, the per piece increase is very similar to the commercial base. However, the savings are even deeper. So it's easy to see the strategy to help more shippers move their business to the Postal Service and committing to that for the long term.
So the remainder of this webinar will focus on the market dominant rate changes. Any comments before we get started?
Jeff, as most of our attendees know, the market dominant rates are limited to the price cap set by the Consumer Price Index for urban customers, which for this period was only 1.98%. Under the November 2016 resolution I talked about earlier, the Postal Service could raise rates in 2018 using 95% of the newly accrued and previously unused CPI authority.
So how did the rates for first class mail break out?
First class mail is also like the shipping services we talked about earlier and is divided into two categories, retail and commercial. Retail are the single piece rates, and commercial is when you're using meters, permits, or have volumes and sorting discounts. Well, for first class mail, we finally have the 50-cent stamp. Now, what that also means is that for the first time since February of 1991, you'll no longer have to receive pennies back as change when you're buying stamps at a counter at your local post office. Jeff, as you're aware, my father was a clerk for the Postal Service for over 20 years. So I know that the retail counter clerks around the country are probably much happier with this new rate. The Postal Service did not change the amount they charge for the second ounce, which is 21 cents. For first class mail flats, you'll notice that they've gone up 2% or 2 cents. But what's very important is when you look at the amount, $1. What's a first class letter cost under the new rate? 50 cents. So when you're sending a low weight flat, it's simply 2 first class stamps. Again, it makes it easier for the retail customer. After staying flat last year, the rate for postcards went up 1 penny to 35 cents. Again, nice round nickel, so no pennies in return. For commercial mailers, and that's for most of the people on this call, your first class letter pre-sorts have gone up by different amounts depending upon how fine your sort is. Single piece metered mail is increasing to 47 cents, and that keeps it with being 3 cents lower than a stamp. The mixed AADC rate is increasing by only 1/10 of a cent, while the AADC and 5-digit categories are both increasing by 1/2 cent. Those new rates will be 4.6, 6.2, and 9.2 cents lower than a metered single piece. This is a substantial savings and goes back to people need to pre-sort their mail, either on their own or with a business partner.
So what's going on with the USPS marketing mail?
The transition from the old standard mail to USPS marketing mail continues, with mailers testing the new indicia language. The launch date for the new optional indicia language was originally intended for January 2019. But customers who would like to use the marketing mail indicia earlier can contact the Pricing and Classification Service Center, that's the PCSC, and get approval to use it. Also, the Postal Service requests that companies that use the marketing mail in their indicia to share their test results with the Postal Service. Are they seeing greater responses? Is it significantly changing open rates? The rate structure for marketing mail isn't quite as straightforward as first class mail, as the mail entry point has a significant impact. So we're going to have to stay at a fairly high level during this review. And that means that mailers need to take the time to know their mail. They need to know how it's shaped, how much it weighs, where are they entering it, and how you're sorting it to make sure you understand the full impact of this increase. For example, for letters, our chart shows the difference between a mixed origin submission, Destination Network Distribution Center, or DNDC, and the Destination Sectional Center Facility entry. The closer to the carrier that the mail enters the Postal Service, the lower the prices. For listeners who use a vendor to create and enter their marketing mail, whether that's an advertising firm or a direct mailing company, set up some time to have them explain to you how they plan on achieving the lowest possible rate for your mail. Listeners will notice that the same high-density DSCF rates for letters, as well as the carrier rates for flats, have a higher percentage increase. These increases are designed to more accurately reflect the cost avoidance the Postal Service gains at these sort levels. It has been discovered that the Postal Service has been over-rewarding the savings in these categories, and thus they are closing the gap.
Mark, I've noticed that for periodicals, you only included bullet points, not charts. Why is that?
Well, that's because, Jeff, on periodicals, there's an even larger number of variables than when we get with USPS marketing mail. There's content, advertising versus editorial, outside county, inside county, machinable flats, non-machinable flats, containers, pallets, bundles, and believe it or not, a few more.
Wow.
Exactly. So people who mail in this category need to be experts, or they need to hire experts to select the best way to prepare and present their mail to the Postal Service. While you and I are consultants in this industry, when someone comes to us with a periodicals problem, we find another person to help them. You really do need to be an expert. While the overall increases for periodicals are directly in line with CPI, which is 1.93% for outside county and 1.84% for inside county, the distribution of those increases is dependent upon size. So that means smaller, low volume publications are going to see a larger increase in their rates, while larger, heavier volume, high volume periodicals may see a postage decline.
Finally, there are changes within the extra services and fees. It's impossible for us to go through all those changes. What are the most common extra services and fees that impact mailers, and what are those changes?
Jeff, as you said, there are a lot of options with special services. So again, what do you use in your operation? Do you use P.O. boxes, certified mail, certificate of mailing? You need to look at what you use. P.O. boxes are increasing an average of about 1.9%. But again, the size of the box that you use determines the actual increase. Certified mail is seeing an increase of 3% and return receipt by 0.7%. So what services are you using? But also, we want to make sure our listeners ask, why are they sending mail a certain way? Are they sending it certified mail when they could send it certificate of mailing? Are they sending it return receipt when they don't need to? Mm-hmm. So for any special services that you're using, please take a moment. This is the right time to do that. Why are you using that service? Is it covered by statute? Is it required by statute? Some of our listeners may know that there was a recent court ruling that a government agency used FedEx to send something to a permit that was denied, and the law said certified mail. Mm-hmm. So the court overruled the fines that were put on at this point in time, and they're going back into it. So go find the statutes, find the legal folks in your company, and determine what is required by statute or required by law.
Good advice. When and where are the new rates published? Hate to date myself. Is there still a rate fold available?
A rate fold. Well, I guess, Jeff, you are showing your age. For those of you on the webinar who are not 50 years or older, the Postal Service used to release the rate increase on a piece of paper that was folded 3 times. It was 11 by 24 and then 11 by 36 that you could fold, and became a 6-page because it was duplex. And that was the entire postal rate increase. Now, the USPS price list is not a rateful. There are too many categories. The Notice 123 is available on Postal Explorer, which is pe.usps.com. We'll talk about that again in a bit, as either an HTML or a PDF document. So the current PDF is 75 pages long. I mean, that really demonstrates how much our industry has changed over the last decades. So until January 21, the new rates are available for download as either an Excel or a CSV file. When you download the Excel file, they have a tab for each rate class, complete with the zone and weight tables. So we recommend you go to Postal Explorer, download that, and take a look at the exact rates that are going to impact you.
Mark, earlier you mentioned the Postal Regulatory Commission's review of the rate-making rules. How does that impact the rate case?
So Jeff, the Postal Regulatory Commission, the PRC, they released their finding on December 1st, 2017. So they do not impact this rate case. They won't go into effect until after they're finally approved. The PRCs came to basically a split decision. Some of the aspects of the system, the current system that's regulating rates and classes for market-dominant products have worked as intended by the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act of 2006. However, the system has not achieved the overall objectives. For example, the commissioners concluded the system created rate changes that were consistent and predictable was a goal. At the same time, though, pricing efficiency was an increase. The Postal Service hasn't achieved sound financial health, and while there have been some efficiency gains and cost reductions, there have been no retained earnings to either address medium-term or long-term stability. Since the passage of the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act, the Postal Service hasn't been able to maintain the same service standards that were in place before. Furthermore, the current system doesn't effectively encourage the Postal Service to maintain or improve their service standards. So with those findings in mind, the PRC recommended the following changes. A two-pronged approach to complement rather than replace the CPIU price cap. So the first is that they would give 2 additional percentage points of rate authority per class of mail per calendar year for each of the first 5 full calendar years following the effective date of these proposed rules. They also are going to add an additional 1 percentage point of rate authority per class of mail, contingent on the Postal Service meeting or exceeding operational efficiency-based standards and adhering to service standards quality criteria. So I want to just editorialize just a bit before I continue. A lot of folks have said, well, if you add 2% and then 1% on top of that, rates will double over the 5 years. I want to really stress 2 things at this point. One is it's rate authority. So it doesn't mean that the Postal Service will be able to do that. And that additional 1% is basically a carrot to increase Postal Service standards. Yep. It's not guaranteed. The PRC also said to close the price cost gap on certain products in classes that have failed to cover their attributable costs. There will be a required rate increase of a minimum of 2 percentage points above the percentage increase for those classes. So you already saw that when we talked about flats earlier, and you saw that additional increase. We also want to emphasize that these new rules aren't finalized. The PRC will accept public comments until March 1st, 2018. There have been a lot of published articles on the proposed rules. Many people say it goes too far in giving the Postal Service freedom to raise rates, while others have said it doesn't go far enough. I'm sure we're going to see more in the coming months, and I think it will also make for a very interesting National Postal Forum.
Yeah. Mark, can you provide our listeners with some advice on what they should be doing during the actual implementation of the new rates? What are some tips?
So what we're providing here is actually an implementation checklist. Also on our blog, we have an ebook that goes into even further detail than this checklist. As we said, this PowerPoint will be available afterwards for people to download, or they can download the ebook. There are no additional charges. So we've divided this into 3 areas. One is what you should be doing right now, what you'll do directly before the increase takes effect, and then what you should be doing on January 21 and 22. Remember, most of us work on Monday morning. Mm-hmm. So the first thing you should do now, if you haven't already done so, is to send an announcement to your customers. Now, this includes your internal customers if you're a corporate mail center, as well as your external customers. Let them know that these changes are taking into effect. Look at how it will affect their invoices and what you charge them. By the way, if you are a service provider or an in-plant, this is a great opportunity to show your customers that you're adding value to the process. You're showing that you're the expert, and that's why they use you. You should also meet with your local postal representatives. As we talked, there are some slight preparation changes for standard mail and periodicals. Meet with your Postal Service representative to go over how any of those changes may impact your mail. Go over how a postage statement you're filling out today will look tomorrow. You may also consider going and meeting with the business mail entry manager or her representatives. Further, you should be meeting with your meter and software representatives. Those meetings can take place over the phone just to talk about when you will receive your updates. If you use a digital postage meter, how do you download an update for your postage meter? When is that going to take place? And how is that going to take place? Who actually does the installation? Meet with your service representatives and discuss that with them or your service tech. With your software vendors, meet to talk about when you're going to receive updates, how you will do the updates, and how will you test to make sure the update was properly received and installed. Meet with your mail center employees. Go over this presentation, or at least the parts of the presentation that impact your categories of mail. This webinar is being recorded, and the PDF will be made available for download. You may want to do a lunch and learn with your employees, have them listen to this, and pausing to stop and answer questions as you go along. As I was saying, the next phase is for you to, at end of the day on January 19th or 20th, if you're a 5-day-a-week shop, in other words, you process mail Monday through Friday, January 19th is that Friday. If you also enter mail on Saturday, January 20th, is that Saturday. I recommend making those changes at the end of the day after you've closed out for one reason. Mondays can be Mondays. You don't know what's going to hit you on Monday, January 22nd when you walk through the door. You've closed out the day on Friday, you've closed out the day on Saturday. There's no immediate rush to get things done or to resolve problems. Take this time to take the steps that will make your Monday go a lot easier. Upload any software for your meters or forms. Post reminders at the meters. Post a reminders at the inserters. Post a reminder if you have a customer service window on that window to remind customers and the service clerks about the changes. And go around and collect every single printed form, recycle them, and then put out the new forms that you downloaded from the Postal Service. Do that at the end of that day. Now, when you get to Monday, January 22nd, the first thing you want to do is send out another announcement to your customers, reminding them today's the day the rate case takes place. This may be an email that you've already prepared. It may be something you mailed in the physical mail. We can still use that to remind people, but send an announcement to all your customers, internal and external. Make sure you start the day with briefing to all your mail center's employees. This can be part of your daily 5-minute huddle, reminding them the new rates have gone into effect. New preparation standards have gone into effect, and new forms have gone into effect. Remind them and answer any questions they may have. Go around and test every meter and form. Because the software is digital, the software may not actually work until January 21st. So you, again, will want to test it first before you go into production.
Make sure your meters are putting the right amount of postage on your 1 ounce, your pre-sort mail, etc. And make sure online forms have the new rates loaded in them. You should also implement additional quality control checks throughout the day. I'm sure all of our listeners already have quality control checks in place for their mail. On a day when the rates change, you want to have new and additional QC checks just to make sure nothing gets missed. The last thing I recommend is you have a manager or supervisor accompany your mail to the Postal Service. The first time you enter mail, especially discounted mail to the Postal Service, have a manager or supervisor ride along. There may be questions. So this is a big change for the Postal Service too. You want to make sure that you have somebody there that will work to resolve the problems. Ask the right questions and answer the right questions. Don't throw this just on your clerks and drivers. This is a great opportunity to step up and show additional support.
Mark, you've covered a lot of information with us today, and I want to thank you for taking the time to walk through the USPS rate increase. Do you have any closing comments?
Well, several things. The first is we've included a slide here on resources. The USPS.com website has received numerous awards for its ease of use, and I will agree, I think it's very easy to use. As we mentioned, they have a price list available, and they have links to all the Federal Registry notices. There's a couple of areas deeper within the USPS website that you should spend time on. The first is Postal Explorer, which is pe.usps.com. There's no www in front of it. This is where you can easily access the DMM and other publications to quickly get information about how to prepare your mail. Postal Pro is now live. It replaced RIBS, and this is another great opportunity to get additional information from the Postal Service, additional publications, and just a lot of valuable information, really working well. Also, this is where you can access briefings from the Postal Service, briefings at MTAC, etc. The DMM Advisory is one of the most important postal services from the Postal Service. You receive regular updates via email from the Postal Service, not just on pricing changes, but also regulatory changes or any potential notices going into the Federal Register. And it's very simple. You send an email to dmmadvisory@usps.com. Include your name and your email address in the body and put subscribe in the subject line. This is one of the most important tools we use as consultants, and we recommend all of our customers use it as well. There's no way I could keep up with the changes at the Postal Service if I didn't have DMM advisory notices coming into my mailbox. I also recommend that our users sign up for the PCC Insider newsletter. This is often the same information coming from DMM Advisory, but also includes important information about online courses that are be available and other information that PCCs may be presenting to their members. A good friend of mine, Doug Egglesworth, who ran a very successful pre-sort company, used to tell me, Mark, you need to know your mail. That was the one thing Doug always knew. He knew his mail, he knew his customers' mail. And what did that mean? It meant you know the content. What class should be using? Is it first-class mail? Could it qualify USPS marketing mail? Could it be bound printed matter or meteor mail? You need to know the content to determine the class and then the category within that class. You need to know the characteristics. What's the shape, the size, the weight, and the full dimensions of your mail piece, because that's also going to define what class you fall into. How can you change the characteristics of your mail piece to take advantage of the lowest possible rates? Remember, last year we saw the 311 go into effect. 3.5 ounces for 1 ounce rates on first-class mail. Can you change from a flat to a letter-sized piece and take advantage of that? You need to look at this continuously. Now, I have on here weekly, monthly, and quarterly reviews, but I have to tell you something. The best mailers out there, they look at their mail daily. That's right. Every day, they're looking at their mail. They're looking for what's different about today's mail. What could they have changed? And also, could they have delayed today's mail to go with tomorrow and even achieve greater discounts? You should be looking at your mail constantly. It's not necessarily a full-time job, but it's a very important part of your job, or somebody with a keen analytical mind who reports to your organization. You know, the last part is use the Postal Service. As they like to say, USPS begins with you. The Postal Service has spent a lot of time educating their managers and their business service network on these changes. Take the time to use your local services, your local resources. Meet with your business mail entry manager, meet your account representative, meet if you have a local mail piece design analyst. What changes can you make to your characteristics, to your content, to your quantities to really maximize the discounts that are available to you? And to be successful, know your mail.
Okay, folks, it's time for us to go through some questions, and I have two of them here. One of them is specific location for the rates on Postal Explorer. Having trouble finding it.
Okay, so if you go to pe.usps.com, on the right-hand side, I wonder if I can flip to it, Explorer. Let me see if I can bring that up on my screen right now and share it with you. So as you can see, it says on the right-hand side, prices, and then underneath price list, it says January 2018 documents. And when you click on that documents, it shows you can have them revised in Excel, or CSV. So, and it also has the new postage statement changes and the final versions of those. So that's all available for you right there on pe.usps.com.
And another question was, when would they be available? They're available right now.
They're available right now, and on January 21 is when the new Notice 123 gets posted.
We had another question about preparation changes. Could you go into more detail? Don't know that you can, but
yeah, it all depends on your specific class of mail, and it's mostly within the standard flats and the publications, periodicals. So I would ask that you go through, and when you go through the rate case, look at those particular sections.
That's it for all the questions I can find online here. I do want to thank everybody for the patience with the audio problem. Mark, I want to thank you very much for all the information you shared with us today. Also, I'd like to thank our listeners. If you would like any additional information, please visit our website, www.berkshire-company.com. And we look forward to seeing everyone at the National Postal Forum in San Antonio, May 6th through the 9th. And to receive an extra 10% off your NPF registration, be sure to check the box labeled "I have a different discount code" and enter the code MARK2018 into that discount code box, then click apply. To learn more about registration options and opportunities to save, visit www.npf.org for details. Until then, goodbye.